On that freezing November afternoon in 2024, nobody inside the small barbershop on 5th Street knew that God himself was about to walk through that door. The wind rattled the old glass windows of Anderson Family Barbershop, carrying with it the first real bite of winter. That kind of cold that settles into your bones and makes you wonder if spring will ever come again. Inside, Marcus Anderson sat in the third chair from the door, his father's chair, staring at his reflection in a mirror that had witnessed 3 generations of haircuts, 3 generations of stories, 3 generations of prayers whispered between the buzz of clippers and the snap of scissors. But today, at 56 years old, with grey threading through his close-cropped hair and weariness etched deep around his eyes, Marcus wondered if this barbershop, this sacred family legacy, would survive to see a 4th generation. Before we continue, I need you to subscribe to this channel right now so these testimonies of Jesus walking among us can reach every corner of the earth. And comment below which city you're watching this from. Let's see how far God's message travels today. The clock on the wall, the same round Coca-Cola clock his grandfather had hung in 1967, read 4:47 p.m., and Marcus hadn't had a single customer all day, not one. The gospel station played softly from the old radio on the counter, Sister Rosetta Tharpe singing "This Train." But even her powerful voice couldn't lift the heaviness that pressed down on Marcus's chest. He looked around the shop, really looked at it, seeing it through the eyes of someone about to lose everything they've ever known. 4 vintage barber chairs lined the east wall, their red leather cracked and patched with duct tape, their chrome frames spotted with age but still gleaming where Marcus polished them every morning before opening. The checkerboard floor, black and white tiles his father had laid down in 1974, was worn smooth in the pathways between chairs, grooved by decades of shuffling feet and swept hair. The walls were covered with photographs, his grandfather Eugene standing proud in front of the shop's original location in 1958, his father Jerome cutting Muhammad Ali's hair when the champion came through Louisville in 1982, Marcus himself, as a young man of 23, receiving his barber's license, Patricia, his beautiful Patricia, cutting the ribbon at their shop expansion in 2003. Patricia. Marcus closed his eyes, and he could still smell her perfume, that jasmine scent she wore every day. Could still hear her laugh echoing through the shop when she'd bring lunch and tease the old-timers about their checkers games. Could still feel her hand in his during those last days at University Hospital when the cancer had taken everything but her faith. When she'd whispered, "Marcus, baby, you keep that shop running. You keep serving people. That's what we do. That's our ministry." That was 6 years ago. 6 years of waking up alone in their house on Magnolia Street, reaching across the bed to empty sheets, brewing coffee for 1 instead of 2. 6 years of medical debt collectors calling, of payment plans that never seemed to end, of watching the stack of bills grow while the customers dwindled and dwindled and dwindled. The rent was due in 4 days, $850. Marcus had $237 in his checking account. He'd already talked to Mr. Chen, his landlord, 3 times this month. The old man had been patient, God bless him. He'd been patient, but his son Robert was taking over the properties now, and Robert didn't have his father's mercy. Robert had made it clear, pay up by Monday, or the shop was done. Marcus stood up and walked to the front window, his knees aching, too many years standing on hard floors, and looked out at 5th Street. The neighborhood had changed so much in the past decade. Chen's Chinese restaurant next door had closed last year, replaced by a vape shop with neon signs that buzzed all night. Moretti's shoe repair across the street was now a cell phone store. The old movie theater where he'd taken Patricia on their first date was boarded up, covered in graffiti. And 6 blocks west, gleaming like some spaceship landed in the wrong neighborhood, was Fade King's, a corporate barbershop with 15 stations, TVs everywhere, online booking, branded everything. They charged $25 for a cut that Marcus charged $12 for, but people went there because it was new, because it was trendy, because it had Wi-Fi and Instagram-worthy mirrors. Have you ever felt invisible? Have you ever stood in a place that used to be the center of your world and realized that the world had simply moved on without you? Marcus pressed his forehead against the cold glass. His breath fogged the window, and for a moment he was a child again, waiting for his father to finish up so they could go home for dinner, drawing pictures in the condensation while Grandpa Eugene swept up the hair and hummed old spirituals. "God," Marcus whispered, his voice barely audible over the radio. "I know I ain't supposed to question you. Patricia never questioned you, not even at the end. But Lord, do you see me? Do you see this shop? My granddaddy built something here. My daddy built something here. We served this community for 66 years. We cut hair, sure, but we did more than that. We listened. We prayed with folks. We were a place where a black man could come and be treated with dignity, where people could be themselves. And now..." His throat closed up. He couldn't finish the prayer. The phone in his pocket buzzed. A text from his daughter Keisha in Atlanta. "Dad can't talk now, super busy, will call you later." That was the third time this month she'd blown him off. His son DeMarco was even worse. Hadn't called in 8 weeks, hadn't visited Louisville in over a year. They had their own lives, their own problems, their own families. They didn't understand why he was so attached to an old barbershop that doesn't make money anymore. But this wasn't just a barbershop. This was legacy. This was family. It was everything. Marcus returned to his chair and sat down heavily. The shop smelled the way it always had. Barbicide disinfectant with its sharp medical scent, Pinot Clubman aftershave with its powdery sweetness, Murray's pomade with its petroleum richness, and underneath it all, the clean smell of talcum powder and the faint mustiness of old wood. These were the smells of his entire life. He picked up his scissors, his father's scissors actually, the ones Jerome had used for 43 years, and tested their weight in his hand. The metal was worn smooth where his father's thumb had rested, and now where his own thumb rested in the exact same spot. How many haircuts had been given with these scissors? How many conversations? How many problems solved? How many prayers answered? How many people sent back into the world looking better, feeling better, standing taller? "Maybe that's enough," Marcus said softly to the empty shop. "Maybe 66 years is enough. Maybe it's okay to let go." But even as he said it, grief rose up in his chest like a fist. He wasn't ready. God help him. He wasn't ready to turn off the lights for the last time, to hand over the keys, to watch someone else, or worse, no one else, occupy this space that held his whole history, his whole heart. The radio DJ came on between songs. It's 5:13 p.m. on this cold November Friday, Louisville. Temperatures dropping down to 28 degrees tonight, so if you know anybody out on the streets, check on them, y'all. Jesus said in Matthew 25 that whatever we do for the least of these, we do for him. Be a blessing today, Louisville. Matthew 25:40. Marcus had heard that scripture 1,000 times. Patricia used to quote it whenever they'd give free haircuts to the homeless on Christmas Eve, when they'd cook extra food and bring it to Wayside Christian Mission, when they'd let people pay what they could instead of turning them away. "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." Marcus checked the time. 5:15 p.m. He should close up, go home, heat up the leftovers from Wednesday's dinner, sad little container of spaghetti for one, and try not to think about Monday, try not to think about losing everything, try not to think about the silence of his empty house. He stood up and walked to the door to flip the open sign to closed. That's when he saw him. A man was approaching the shop from the east, moving slowly down 5th Street, hunched against the wind. Marcus's hand froze on the doorknob. Even from 50 feet away, he could see this was a homeless man. You developed an eye for it after years in an urban barbershop. The shuffling gait, the layers of clothing, the overstuffed backpack, the shopping cart left at the corner. The man got closer, and Marcus could see more details. White or Hispanic, maybe early 50s, with long matted hair hanging past his shoulders. The kind of matted that happens after months without washing, clumped together with God knows what. A thick beard that covered most of his face, unkempt and wild. A torn grey jacket that might have been nice once. Ripped jeans with holes at both knees, and shoes, Jesus Christ, those shoes, held together with duct tape wrapped around and around. The man stopped in front of Anderson Family Barbershop. He looked at the painted window. Anderson Family Barbershop, Est 1958. All are welcome. And then he looked at Marcus through the glass. Their eyes met. The man's eyes were deep brown, almost black in the fading light, and there was something in them that Marcus couldn't quite name. Not desperation exactly, though there was need there. Not fear, though there was vulnerability. Something else. Something that made Marcus's heart beat faster. The man's hand, dirty, with cracked nails, reached for the door handle. Marcus had every reason to turn the man away. He smelled like the streets. Marcus could smell him even through the door, that acrid mixture of body odor, urine, unwashed clothes, dirt, and despair. He clearly had no money, or not enough money anyway. Marcus needed every dollar he could get. He was exhausted, emotionally drained, ready to go home and wallow in his own problems. But Patricia's voice echoed in his mind. That's our ministry. Marcus opened the door. The smell hit him immediately, stronger than he'd expected, that overwhelmingly human smell of someone who'd been living rough for a long time. The man stepped into the warmth of the shop, and Marcus could see him more clearly now in the fluorescent light. His hair wasn't just matted, it was filled with debris, bits of leaves, dirt, what looked like dried food. His beard had food particles stuck in it. His clothes were stiff with dirt and wear. His hands shook slightly, whether from cold or malnutrition or withdrawal, Marcus couldn't tell. We closed?" the man asked. His voice was hoarse, rough, like he didn't use it much. "Well," Marcus heard himself say, "I was just about to close up, but I got time. What can I do for you?" The man's eyes filled with something, hope, relief, and Marcus saw his Adam's apple bob as he swallowed hard. I got a job interview, Monday morning, 9 a.m. It's at the Kroger warehouse on 7th Street. It's my first interview in 8 months, mister. My first real chance." Marcus nodded, understanding filling him. "You need to look presentable." "Yeah." The man reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a crumpled wad of bills. With shaking hands he counted it out, 6 $1 bills, wrinkled and dirty. "I got $6. I know that ain't enough for a haircut and a beard trim these days, but I thought maybe you could just clean up the beard, or I don't know, just whatever you can do with $6. I just need to look like somebody would hire me, you know? I need to look like I'm trying." Marcus looked at those $6, probably all the money this man had in the world, and something broke open inside his chest. This man was willing to spend literally everything he had just for a chance to be seen as human, to be given a shot at dignity, at work, at life. If you believe God still performs miracles, hit that like button right now. And don't forget to subscribe. These stories need to reach every soul that needs hope. "Listen," Marcus said gently. "What's your name?" "Michael Santos." "Michael, I'm Marcus Anderson. This here's my family's shop, my granddaddy's shop, my daddy's shop, now mine. And let me tell you something." Marcus reached out and gently pushed Michael's outstretched hand with the $6 back toward his chest. "You keep that money. You're going to need it for bus fare to that interview, maybe a coffee, maybe a meal. The haircut's on me." Michael's face contorted, and for a second Marcus thought he might cry. "I can't. Mister, I can't just take charity. I got money. I can pay. It ain't charity, Marcus said, and he meant it. It's ministry. You said you got an interview Monday morning. That means somebody saw something in you worth interviewing. That means you got a chance. And I'll be damned if I'ma let you walk into that interview looking like you don't deserve that chance. Now come on, let's get you cleaned up. Michael stood there frozen for a moment, and then his face crumpled. Silent tears started rolling down his dirty cheeks, cutting clean lines through the grime. Nobody's been kind to me in so long. You don't even know what this means. I think I do, Marcus said softly. Now come on, let's start with that hair. When's the last time you had a proper wash? Honest, Michael wiped his eyes with the back of his dirty hand. I can't remember. Months, maybe. I wash up in gas station bathrooms sometimes, but you can't really wash your hair in a sink, you know? In the shelters, they only let you shower once a week if you can get a bed, and most nights they're full. Marcus felt anger rise up, not at Michael, but at a world where a man could go months without a proper washing, where dignity was rationed out once a week if you were lucky. Well, we're gonna fix that right now. Head on back to the washing station. The washing station was at the back of the shop, a professional sink with a curved neck rest and a spray hose. Marcus had installed it himself 20 years ago, had washed thousands of heads at this sink, but he'd never washed someone who needed it quite like Michael needed it now. You just lay your head back here, Marcus instructed, guiding Michael to the chair in front of the sink. It's gonna take a few washes to get all this out, but we got time. We got all the time in the world. Michael lowered himself into the chair carefully, like a man who wasn't used to furniture, who wasn't used to being invited to sit down anywhere. He leaned his head back, and his long, matted hair fell into the sink bowl. Up close, Marcus could see how bad it really was. The hair was clumped together in sections, some parts so tangled they looked almost like dreadlocks. But dreadlocks formed from neglect rather than intention. There were bits of everything in there, dried leaves, dirt, something that might have been chewing gum, what looked like dried blood on one side. This might hurt a little when I start working the tangles out, Marcus warned, but I'll be gentle as I can. I don't mind pain, Michael said, staring up at the ceiling. I'm used to pain. Marcus turned on the warm water, adjusting the temperature carefully, not too hot, not too cold, and began wetting Michael's hair. The water running off into the sink immediately turned brown, then grey, then brown again. It was shocking how dirty it was. Marcus grabbed his clarifying shampoo, the strong stuff he used for people with product buildup, and squeezed a generous amount into his palm. Okay, here we go, he said, and began working the shampoo into Michael's hair. His fingers moved through the tangles, and he could feel Michael tense up at first, probably expecting it to hurt, expecting rough handling. But Marcus had been doing this for 34 years. He knew how to be gentle, how to find the tangles and work them loose, instead of just pulling. The shampoo foamed up brown at first, barely even white, just dirt and oil and street grime mixing with the cleaner. You know, Marcus said as he worked, my daddy used to say that cutting hair was about dignity. He said when a man sits in your chair, he's trusting you with something important. He's trusting you to make him look like the person he wants to be, or needs to be, or used to be. That's a sacred thing. Michael didn't respond at first, but Marcus saw his throat working, saw him swallow hard. I used to be somebody, Michael finally said, his voice thick. I used to be a person who mattered. You still matter, Marcus said firmly, rinsing out the first wash. The water ran brown, almost black. You matter right now, in this moment. You matter to that hiring manager who's going to interview you Monday. You matter to God, and you matter to me. He started the second wash, using regular shampoo this time. The lather was already coming up whiter, cleaner. You want to tell me your story? Marcus asked. You don't have to, but sometimes it helps to tell it. Michael was quiet for a long moment, and Marcus thought maybe he wouldn't talk. Some people didn't want to. Some people's stories were too painful to tell to a stranger, even a stranger who was washing their hair with kind hands. But then Michael spoke. "I was an accountant," he said, staring at the ceiling. "Worked for a firm in Chicago. Morrison, Klein and Associates. Had that job for 16 years. I was good at it, too. Real good. Made decent money, had a nice apartment in Lincoln Park, drove a Lexus, had a wife, Jessica, and 2 kids, Ethan and Sophie. Ages 12 and 9 when everything fell apart." Marcus kept washing, kept massaging, let Michael talk. "Lost my job when I was 51. They said it was downsizing, but really they were getting rid of the older guys, bringing in younger people they could pay less. I tried to find another job. God, I tried. Sent out hundreds of resumes, went to interviews. But nobody wants to hire a 51-year-old accountant when they can hire a 26-year-old. Who knows all the new software and will work for half the salary." Marcus had heard versions of this story before, but it never got easier to hear. "How long before things got bad?" 6 months. Michael's voice cracked. 6 months of living off savings. Then Jessica said she was done, said she didn't sign up to be married to a failure. She filed for divorce, got the apartment, got most of the custody, because I couldn't prove I could provide for the kids. They moved to Seattle. I tried to keep up with child support, but how you going to pay child support with no job? "What about your kids?" Marcus asked gently, rinsing the second wash. The water was running much clearer now, more grey than brown. "They stopped answering my calls. Their mom probably told them I abandoned them, which I guess I did in a way, just not the way she meant. I lost the apartment, lived in my car for a while, that Lexus I was so proud of, until it got repossessed. Then I just drifted. Chicago to Milwaukee to Indianapolis to here. 4 years now, 4 years on the streets." Marcus started the third and final wash, using his conditioning shampoo this time, working it deep into Michael's hair. "You got family anywhere, friends? Had a brother in St. Louis, but he said I couldn't come around until I got my life together. Can't get my life together without help. Can't get help without having my life together. It's a circle, you know. A trap." "I know about traps," Marcus said quietly. He began working through the tangles now, using his fingers to gently separate the clumps, working from the ends up toward the roots the way you're supposed to. Some parts were so knotted he had to work for several minutes just to get them loose, but he never pulled, never yanked, never hurt. And Michael started to cry. Not loud crying, not sobbing, just silent tears rolling down from the corners of his eyes, mixing with the water from the spray hose. His shoulders shook slightly. "I'm sorry," Michael whispered. "I'm sorry. Nobody's touched me in so long. Nobody's touched me with kindness. Do you know what that's like? To be invisible? To have people look right through you like you're not even there? Or worse, to have them look at you with disgust, with fear, like you're dangerous or dirty or less than human?" Marcus's own eyes burned. "I think I'm starting to understand," he said. "Different kind of invisible, maybe, but invisible all the same." "What do you mean?" Michael asked. Marcus rinsed the conditioner out, watching the water run almost clear now. Michael's hair, clean and wet, was actually a nice dark brown with some grey at the temples. "I'm about to lose this shop," Marcus said. "Can't make rent, can't compete with the new places. My wife died 6 years ago from cancer, cervical cancer. And the medical bills just never stopped coming. My kids moved away, don't call much, got their own lives. I sit in this shop every day, waiting for customers who don't come, wondering if God even sees me anymore, wondering if I matter. Oh, have you ever felt like you're shouting into a void and nobody hears you? Have you ever wondered if your whole life's work means anything at all?" "My wife," Marcus continued, turning off the water and beginning to towel dry Michael's hair gently. Her name was Patricia. Most beautiful woman I ever saw, inside and out, you know. She had this faith that nothing could shake. Even at the end, even when the pain was so bad she could barely speak, she'd whisper Bible verses. She'd tell me, "Marcus, baby, God sees us, God's got a plan." I tried to believe her, Lord knows I tried. But lately... He trailed off, wrapping Michael's hair in a towel and helping him sit up. They were face to face now, and Marcus could see Michael's eyes, really see them for the first time, and there was something in those eyes, something deep and knowing and impossibly kind. "Patricia," Michael said softly, and Marcus froze. "She sounds like she was an amazing woman." Marcus's heart stuttered. He hadn't mentioned Patricia's name, had he? He must have. He must have said it and just forgotten in the emotion of the moment. "Come on," Marcus said, shaking off the strange feeling. "Let's get you in the chair and start on this haircut. We got work to do." Marcus led Michael to the first chair, his grandfather's chair, and Michael sat down slowly, carefully, like he couldn't quite believe this was happening. Marcus pumped the chair up to the right height, draped a clean cape around Michael's shoulders, and stood back to assess what he was working with. The hair, now clean and damp, hung past Michael's shoulders, uneven and ragged. The beard covered most of his face, wild and untrimmed, but Marcus could see the shape of a human face underneath, could see the potential. "Okay," Marcus said, picking up his scissors and comb. "How do you want to wear it?" "Whatever you think," Michael said. "Just make me look like somebody worth hiring." Marcus nodded and got to work. He started with the length, sectioning the hair and beginning to cut. The scissors made that satisfying sound. Snip, 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 as length fell away in wet clumps to the checkered floor. He worked methodically, carefully, the way his father had taught him, the way his father's father had taught his father. As he worked, they talked. "What was your wife's favorite Bible verse?" Michael asked suddenly. Marcus paused in his cutting, thinking. She had a few, but the one she came back to most was Matthew 25:40. "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." She'd say that's Jesus talking, telling us that when we serve the poor, the hungry, the stranger, the prisoner, when we serve the least of these, we're really serving him. "That's a powerful verse," Michael said. "Do you believe it?" Did he? Marcus wasn't sure anymore. "I want to," he admitted, "but it's hard sometimes. You serve and serve and serve, and the world just keeps taking. You love people and they leave or die. You try to do right, and everything still falls apart. Makes you wonder if it matters. Makes you wonder if any of it matters." "It matters," Michael said with such certainty that Marcus stopped cutting and looked at him in the mirror. "Every act of kindness matters. Every moment of grace matters. Even when you can't see the results, even when it feels like nothing's changing, it matters. The universe is keeping accounts, Marcus. Heaven is keeping accounts." There was something about the way Michael said that, "Heaven is keeping accounts," that sent a shiver down Marcus's spine, but he went back to cutting, moving to the sides now, shortening the hair to a professional length that would look good on a job interview. "Tell me about your kids," Michael said. "Keisha and DeMarco." Marcus's hands froze. He definitely hadn't mentioned his children's names. He was certain of it. "How did you know their names?" Michael looked at him in the mirror, those deep brown eyes holding his gaze. "You must have mentioned them. What about them? Do they know you're struggling? Had he mentioned them?" Marcus's mind felt foggy. Maybe he had. He must have. "They know the shop's not doing great, but I don't think they understand what that means to me. Keisha's got her own problems, going through a divorce, raising 2 kids on her own in Atlanta. She's stressed, she's busy. I don't want to burden her with my stuff. DeMarco, he's a computer programmer in Denver, making good money, got a nice life. He's embarrassed by the shop, I think, embarrassed by his old man who still cuts hair for $12 when he makes $60 an hour writing code. They love you, Michael said. They're just lost right now. Sometimes people get so caught up in their own struggles, they forget to look around, forget to remember who was there when they were struggling. Marcus moved around to the back, cutting the hair at the nape of Michael's neck, cleaning up the edges. You got kids, you said. You miss them. Every day, Michael said quietly. Every single day. I see kids their age sometimes. Ethan would be 16 now, Sophie 13, and I wonder if they think about me. I wonder if they hate me. I wonder if they remember me at all, or if I'm just this ghost from their childhood that their mom told them to forget. They remember, Marcus said. Kids don't forget their daddies. You'd be surprised what people can forget when it's too painful to remember. Marcus finished with the scissors and put them down, picking up his clippers. He selected a guard, number 2, good for a clean, professional taper, and switched the clippers on. The buzz filled the shop, a sound that had been the soundtrack of Marcus's entire life. He began working on the fade, blending the sides and back, tapering it down to a clean line. The clipper work was meditative, required focus and precision. He worked in sections, going over each area multiple times, checking his work in the mirror, making sure it was perfect. "You know what I pray every morning?" Michael asked over the buzz of the clippers. "What's that?" "I pray that God will let me be useful again, that's all. I don't pray to win the lottery or get my old life back. I just pray that I can be useful, that I can matter to someone, that my existence can have some kind of purpose. That's what being on the streets takes from you, not just your home and your belongings, but your purpose, your sense that you have something to contribute." Marcus turned off the clippers for a moment. "That Kroger interview Monday, that's your chance." "Yeah." Michael's voice was thick with emotion. "It's a night shift warehouse job, loading trucks, moving boxes. It's minimum wage. It's hard work. It's not accounting. But it's purpose. It's a chance to be useful again." "You'll get it," Marcus said firmly. "You're gonna walk in there Monday morning looking sharp, looking like a man who shows up and does the work, and you're gonna get that job." "How do you know?" "Because I believe in miracles," Marcus said, and realized he meant it. "I might be struggling with my faith right now, might be questioning a lot of things, but I still believe God puts people in each other's paths for a reason. I believe you walked through my door today because you were supposed to, and I believe something good is going to come from it." He went back to work with the clippers, finishing the fade, getting it perfect. Then he switched to his detail trimmer, cleaning up the hairline, shaping it up nice and crisp, giving Michael a sharp, professional edge. "Okay," Marcus said, putting down the trimmers. "Let's talk about this beard." The beard was still wild, still unkempt, still had food particles stuck in it. Marcus grabbed a small scissors, his detailing scissors, and a comb. "I'm going to trim this way down," he explained, "but I'll leave you some length. You'll look distinguished, professional, but still like yourself. That work?" "Whatever you think is best," Michael said. "You're the expert." Marcus began combing through the beard, working out tangles, finding the shape underneath. Then he started cutting, taking off length gradually, working his way around Michael's face. The beard hair fell like rain onto the cape, revealing more and more of Michael's face. And what a face it was! Even worn by years of hard living, even marked by weather and hunger and struggle, it was a kind face, a gentle face, the kind of face that reminded Marcus of pictures of saints in Patricia's Bible, weathered but peaceful, marked by suffering but not hardened by it. As he trimmed, Marcus found himself talking more, opening up in a way he hadn't with anyone since Patricia died. "You know what the worst part of losing her was," he said, working on the mustache area, trimming it back from Michael's lips. "It wasn't the grief, as bad as that was. It was the loneliness. We were married for 31 years. 31 years of waking up next to someone, of having someone to talk to at the end of the day, of being known, really known, you understand? She knew me better than I knew myself. She could tell what I was feeling before I even felt it. And then suddenly she was gone, and I was just alone, completely alone. "You're not alone right now," Michael said gently. "No," Marcus agreed, shaping the sides of the beard. "No, I'm not. Funny how that works, ain't it? Two strangers, two lonely people, and somehow in this moment we're not alone." "Maybe there are no strangers," Michael said. "Maybe there's just people we haven't met yet. People who are supposed to be in our story." Marcus paused, looking at Michael in the mirror. "You talk like a preacher sometimes, you religious." "I believe in God," Michael said simply. "Hard not to when you've been as low as I've been. When you've got nothing, when you've lost everything, you start to understand what really matters. And what really matters is love, kindness, grace, the things that can't be taken away from you because they're not things, they're choices, they're actions." Comment below. "Lord, help me see you in the strangers around me." Let's fill the comments with faith and share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Marcus went back to work, trimming the beard close around the chin, shaping it into a neat, rounded style that would photograph well, that would look professional and maintained. He worked in silence for a few minutes, concentrating, and then asked, "You scared about Monday?" "Terrified," Michael admitted. "What if they take one look at me and see what I am? What if they can smell the streets on me, even after this? What if the manager asks where I've been for the past 4 years and I have to tell them I've been homeless? Nobody wants to hire someone who's been homeless. They think you're unreliable or crazy or an addict. Are you an addict?" "No, never was. Just unlucky." "Then you tell them the truth," Marcus said, now using his razor to clean up the edges of the beard, to make it sharp and defined. "You tell them you fell on hard times, but you never stopped trying. You tell them you're showing up because you want to work, you want to contribute, you want to rebuild your life. And if they don't hire you for that, then they're fools." You make it sound simple. It ain't simple, but it's true. Marcus stepped back, assessing his work. The transformation was remarkable. Michael's hair was now short and professional, styled back from his forehead. The beard was trimmed close, neat, shaped. His face was visible now, fully visible, and he looked like a completely different person. He looked like someone who had just come from an office meeting, someone professional, someone together. "You want to see?" Marcus asked. Michael hesitated. "I'm afraid to look." "Why? What if I see someone I don't recognize? What if I look in that mirror and the person I used to be is just gone?" Marcus put his hand on Michael's shoulder, realized it was the first time he'd touched someone with affection in he couldn't remember how long, and said gently, "You'll recognize yourself. Trust me." He spun the chair around slowly so Michael could see himself in the big mirror on the wall. Michael stared at his reflection. His hands came up to his face, touching his cheeks, his jaw, running through his newly cut hair, and then he started to cry, really cry this time, deep sobs that shook his whole body. "Oh, God," he whispered. "Oh, my God, I look like a person again. I look human." Marcus felt tears burn in his own eyes. "You always were human, Michael. You always were a person. I just helped people see it." Michael couldn't stop staring at himself, couldn't stop crying. "I haven't looked like this in 4 years. 4 years of seeing a monster in store windows, in car mirrors, in reflections. 4 years of not recognizing myself, and now I can see me again." They sat there for a long moment, both of them crying, both of them broken in their own ways, both of them being made a little bit whole by this unexpected grace that had walked through the door on a cold November evening. Finally, Michael wiped his eyes and said, "I gotta pay you something. Please, let me pay you something." No," Marcus said firmly. "But I have money. I have the $6. And you need that money more than I do," Marcus said. "You need it for Monday, for your interview. You need it for bus fare and maybe a meal. You need it more than I need it." "But your shop," Michael said, looking around. "I can see it's struggling. I can see you need money." "How can you see that?" "The dust in the corners. The cracked tiles nobody's fixed. The way you counted your register 3 times earlier when you thought I wasn't looking. The overdue bills in that drawer." Michael pointed to Marcus's desk drawer, which was indeed full of unpaid bills. Marcus felt that chill again. How did Michael know about the bills? He hadn't opened that drawer since Michael arrived. "The money will come, or it won't," Marcus said, trying to shake off the strange feeling. "But right now, in this moment, you need that $6 more than I do. So you keep it." Michael stood up from the chair, and for the first time Marcus saw him stand straight, shoulders back, head up. He looked Marcus right in the eyes, and those eyes, Jesus, those eyes were so full of light and knowing and something Marcus couldn't name, and said, "What you did for me tonight, this is what Jesus would do. This is what it means to serve the least of these." Matthew 25:40. "Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." You just served Jesus, Marcus. You just washed Jesus' feet. The way he said it, the certainty, the authority, made every hair on Marcus's arm stand up. "I hope not," Marcus tried to joke. "Jesus probably smells better than you did when you walked in here." Michael laughed, a real laugh, and it was like sunlight breaking through clouds. "Can I use your bathroom? Maybe clean up a little more?" "Course," Marcus said. "It's in the back. There's soap, paper towels, whatever you need. Take your time." While Michael was in the bathroom, Marcus swept up the hair. So much hair, drifts of it covering the checkered floor. He moved mechanically, his mind spinning. Something about this whole encounter felt strange, felt significant, felt like more than just a homeless man getting a haircut. The way Michael had known Patricia's name, the way he'd known his children's names, the way he'd known about the bills in the drawer, the way he spoke with such certainty about God and purpose and serving the least of these. "You're being crazy," Marcus muttered to himself as he swept. "Man's probably just very observant. Probably you mentioned the names and forgot. Probably he saw you looking at the bills earlier." But he didn't quite believe it. 20 minutes later, Michael emerged from the bathroom looking even more transformed. He'd washed his face and hands, cleaned under his nails as best he could, attempted to straighten his ragged clothes. Combined with the haircut, he looked almost completely normal. You might not hire him to run a bank, but you'd hire him to work a warehouse. Absolutely. "I got some clothes in my car," Marcus heard himself say. "Some stuff I was going to donate. Why don't you let me grab you something clean to wear Monday?" "Marcus, you've done enough. It ain't enough until you got what you need. Wait here." Marcus went out to his car, a 2006 Camry with rust spots and a cracked windshield, and popped the trunk. There was a garbage bag of clothes he'd been meaning to take to Goodwill for 6 months. Dress shirts he couldn't fit anymore, some pants, a couple of old jackets. He grabbed the whole bag and brought it inside. "Here," he said, setting it down. "Take whatever fits. There's some dress shirts in there, some nice pants. Should have something that'll work for Monday." Michael looked through the bag with trembling hands and pulled out a blue button-down shirt and a pair of dark slacks. "These are perfect," he whispered. "These are—" "Marcus, this is too much." "It ain't too much. It's what needs doing. You can change in the bathroom if you want. Take those old clothes off. Start fresh." Michael took the clothes and went back to the bathroom. When he emerged 5 minutes later, Marcus almost didn't recognize him. The transformation was complete. Michael Santos looked like any middle-aged man you'd see at a grocery store, at a bus stop, at a job interview. He looked like someone. He looked like he mattered. "I don't know how to thank you," Michael said, his voice breaking. "You thank me by showing up Monday at 9 a.m. and getting that job," Marcus said. "You thank me by remembering this moment when you're back on your feet and you see someone else who needs help. You thank me by paying it forward." Michael nodded, tears streaming down his clean face again. "I will. I promise you I will. Every kindness I receive from this day forward, I'll pass it on. Every grace I'm given, I'll give to someone else." They stood there for a moment, two men who had been strangers an hour ago and were now bound together by something sacred, something holy. "What time you open tomorrow?" Michael asked. 9 a.m., but it's Saturday. I'll stop by," Michael said. "Just to say thank you again." "If that's okay." "Course it's okay. I'd like that." Michael walked to the door, then turned back. He looked at Marcus with those impossibly deep eyes and said, "Your prayer this morning, at 6:23 a.m., when you were sitting on the edge of your bed before your feet even touched the floor, you said, 'God, I don't know if you hear me anymore, but if you do, if you're still there, please send me a sign. Send me something to let me know this isn't all for nothing. Send me hope.' Remember that prayer?" Marcus's blood turned to ice. He had said that prayer, almost those exact words, but he'd said it silently, in his head, with his eyes closed, completely alone in his empty house. There was no way Michael could know that. No possible way. How? Marcus couldn't form the words. "How do you know that?" Michael smiled, and in that smile was something ancient and infinite and overwhelming. "Because I heard it, Marcus. I heard every word, and this was my answer." The air in the shop seemed to shimmer. Marcus couldn't breathe, couldn't move. "Monday morning, 8:37 a.m., Michael continued. "Robert Chen is going to walk through that door. He's not going to evict you. He's going to offer you a partnership in his new community development project. The shop will be the anchor of a community center, free space for a year while they renovate, then rent controlled after that. You're going to be okay, Marcus. Your ministry here is going to continue." Who are you?" Marcus whispered. "You know who I am," Michael said gently. "You knew the moment I walked through that door. You felt it, even if you didn't want to believe it." "That's impossible. Nothing's impossible with God. You've been faithful in small things, Marcus Anderson. You've served quietly, loved consistently, given sacrificially. When you had little, you still gave. When you were broken, you still loved. When you were questioning, you still served. That's the faith that moves mountains. That's the faith that changes the world. That's the faith that brings heaven to earth." Marcus was shaking now, tears pouring down his face. "I don't understand." "You don't have to understand. You just have to believe. And you just have to keep doing what you did tonight, seeing the invisible, serving the least of these, treating strangers like family, treating the broken like they're precious. Because they are, Marcus. Every person who walks through that door is precious. Every person carrying burdens you can't see is beloved. Every person the world has dismissed is seen by heaven. "What do I do?" Marcus asked, overwhelmed. "You keep being exactly who you are. You keep this shop open. You keep serving. Because this," Michael gestured around the old barber shop, "this is holy ground. 3 generations of your family have made this a place of grace, a place of dignity, a place where people are seen and valued and served. Don't let that legacy die, Marcus. The world needs places like this. The world needs people like you." Michael opened the door, and cold November wind rushed in. "Your daughter's going to call you Tuesday morning. She got promoted, regional manager of her company. They're moving her to Louisville. She and your grandchildren are coming home, Marcus. You're not going to be alone anymore." He stepped out into the night, and Marcus rushed after him. "Wait, Michael, I need to know." But when Marcus got to the sidewalk, there was nobody there. 5th Street was empty in both directions. No one walking away, no one at the corner. The shopping cart Michael had left on the corner was gone. Marcus ran to the end of the block, looking both ways. Nothing. Michael Santos had simply vanished into the November night as if he had never existed at all. Marcus stood there in the cold, his breath making clouds in the air, his heart pounding. He looked up at the sky, at the stars barely visible through the Louisville light pollution, and whispered, "Was that really you?" The wind picked up, warmer now despite the temperature, and somewhere in that wind, Marcus thought he heard a voice. "Whatever you did for one of the least of these, you did for me." He went back inside the shop, locked the door, and collapsed into his grandfather's chair. His whole body was shaking. His mind was reeling. What had just happened? Had he really just cut Jesus' hair? Had he really just served God himself disguised as a homeless man? Or was he losing his mind? Was grief and stress and desperation finally driving him crazy? But then he looked at the floor, at the piles of cut hair still scattered around the chair. Real hair. Human hair. The evidence of what had happened. Michael Santos had been real. The haircut had been real. The conversation had been real. And if all that was real, then maybe— "Oh God," Marcus whispered, covering his face with his hands. "Oh God, oh God, oh God." He stayed in the shop until almost midnight, unable to leave, unable to process what had happened. He cleaned every inch of the shop with a reverence he'd never felt before. This was holy ground now, consecrated by divine presence. He swept the hair and saved some of it in a plastic bag, not sure why, just knowing he needed to keep some piece of this miracle. He polished the mirrors. He scrubbed the sink. He organized his tools with trembling hands. Share this video right now. Your city needs to see this testimony. The world needs to know that Jesus still walks among us, still meets us in our darkest moments. Share it. Finally, exhausted, overwhelmed, transformed, Marcus drove home to his empty house on Magnolia Street. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every word, every impossible thing Michael had known. Sleep didn't come until almost dawn. Saturday morning, Marcus woke up at 6:15 a.m. from habit, even though his body desperately needed more rest. His first thought was, did last night really happen? His second thought was, Michael said he'd stop by this morning. Marcus showered, dressed in his best shirt, and drove to the shop. He opened at exactly 9 a.m., his hands shaking so badly he could barely get the key in the lock. He waited. 9:15, 9:30, 10 o'clock. No Michael. By 11, Marcus was starting to think he'd imagined the whole thing, that stress and desperation had caused some kind of psychotic break, that he needed to see a doctor. And then a man walked through the door. But it wasn't Michael. It was a white guy in his 30s, wearing a Louisville Cardinals hoodie and jeans. "You open?" the man asked. "Yeah," Marcus said, trying to hide his disappointment. "Yeah, come on in." "Great. I need a fade. Nothing fancy. How much?" $12. "Perfect." The guy sat in the chair Michael had sat in last night, and Marcus got to work. As he cut, the man talked. "I've been going to that Fade King's place down the street, but honestly, it's like a factory in there. Nobody talks to you, nobody knows your name. They just want to turn and burn, you know? My buddy told me about this place, said it's been here forever, said it's the real deal." 3 generations, Marcus said automatically, falling back into his work. "My granddaddy opened it in 1958. That's amazing, man. That's like heritage and stuff. We need more places like this." 2 more customers came in that afternoon, then another. By closing time, Marcus had made $84. Not enough to save the shop, but more than he'd made in any single day in the past 2 months. It felt like a tiny seed of hope trying to take root in scorched earth. Michael never showed up. Sunday, Marcus went to church, first time in 3 weeks. He sat in the back of New Covenant Baptist, where he and Patricia had gotten married 32 years ago, and he listened to Pastor Williams preach about Matthew 25. "The judgment of the nations," Pastor Williams said, his voice echoing through the sanctuary. Jesus separating the sheep from the goats. And what's the difference between them? How they treated the least of these, the hungry, the thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, the imprisoned. Whatever we do for them, we do for Christ himself. Marcus sat there with tears rolling down his face, remembering Michael's eyes, remembering his voice. You just served Jesus, Marcus. After service, Sister Margaret, Patricia's best friend, came up to him. Marcus, baby, you okay? I haven't seen you cry like this since Patricia's funeral. I think I met Jesus, Marcus whispered. Friday night. I think God came to my shop disguised as a homeless man, and I didn't recognize him until it was too late. Sister Margaret looked at him with concern. Honey, maybe you should talk to Pastor Williams. Maybe you should... I'm not crazy, Sister Margaret. I know how it sounds, but I'm not crazy. I didn't say you were crazy, baby. I just said maybe you need to talk to someone. You've been under a lot of stress. The shop, the finances, being alone. But Marcus wasn't listening anymore. He was remembering Michael's words. Monday morning, 8:37 a.m., Robert Chen is going to walk through that door. Monday morning, Marcus arrived at the shop at 6:30 a.m., 2.5 hours before he normally opened. He cleaned things that didn't need cleaning. He paced. He prayed. He checked his watch every 30 seconds. Was he crazy? Was any of this real? Or had Michael Santos just been a very perceptive homeless man who made some lucky guesses and happened to disappear at the right dramatic moment? At 8:35 a.m., Marcus started to accept that nothing was going to happen. There would be no miracle, no divine intervention, just another day of sliding toward inevitable failure. At 8:37 a.m. exactly, someone knocked on the locked door. Marcus's heart stopped. He walked to the door and saw Robert Chen standing there, young, professional, carrying a briefcase. With shaking hands, Marcus opened the door. Mr. Anderson, Robert said, I'm sorry to show up unannounced. Do you have a few minutes to talk? Marcus could barely speak. Yeah, come in. They sat in the waiting area, Robert in one of the old chairs that Patricia had picked out 20 years ago. Look, Robert began, I know my father gave you until today to come up with rent, and I know you probably don't have it. My father told me about your situation, the medical debt, the struggle to compete with the new places, everything. Here it comes, Marcus thought. The eviction, the end. But here's the thing, Robert continued. I've been working on a project, a community development initiative. The city approved funding for a community center in this neighborhood, a place for job training, after-school programs, food assistance, that kind of thing. And we need an anchor business, something with roots in the community, something that represents what we're trying to build. Marcus couldn't breathe. My father suggested your shop, Robert said. He said your family has been serving this neighborhood for 3 generations. He said you're the kind of person we want at the center of this project. So here's my offer. I want Anderson Family Barber Shop to be part of the community center, rent-free for the first year while we get everything set up. After that, reduced rent, whatever you can afford permanently. In exchange, you agree to participate in the center's programs, maybe teach some kids barbering skills, provide services for people in job training programs, that kind of thing. Marcus stared at him. Are you serious? Completely serious. I've already drawn up the paperwork. If you agree, you can sign today, and we'll start construction next month. The community center opens in 6 months. Your shop will be the first thing people see when they walk in the door. Marcus couldn't form words. Tears were streaming down his face. I don't understand. Why would you do this? Because my father said you're a good man who's fallen on hard times. And because communities are built by people who care, people who show up, people who've been serving even when nobody's watching. That's you, Mr. Anderson. That's what you've been doing for decades. When do you need an answer? I need to know by Friday, but honestly, I'm hoping you'll say yes right now." Marcus looked around his shop, the cracked leather chairs, the worn checkerboard floor, the faded photographs on the walls, the space where his grandfather and father and Patricia and he himself had spent their lives serving others. And he remembered Michael's words, "This is holy ground. Don't let that legacy die." "Yes," Marcus said. "Yes. Absolutely yes." They shook hands, and Robert pulled out paperwork from his briefcase. As Marcus signed his name, his hand shaking so badly he could barely write, Robert said, "My father told me something interesting. He said, Friday night, around midnight, he had the strongest feeling that he needed to help you, that your shop needed to be saved. He said it felt like God telling him what to do. That's actually what started this whole process. Isn't that strange?" Friday night, when Marcus had been serving Michael, when Michael had told him, "You've been faithful in small things. You've served quietly, loved consistently, given sacrificially." "Not strange at all," Marcus whispered. "Not strange at all." After Robert left, Marcus sat alone in the shop, overwhelmed. It had actually happened. Every word Michael had said had come true. The prophecy, the promise, the miracle, all of it real. But the bigger miracle came Tuesday morning. Marcus was cutting the hair of a regular customer. Old Mr. Williams, who'd been coming to the shop since Marcus's father's time, when his phone rang. The caller ID said Keisha, his daughter, calling him, voluntarily. "Daddy?" Her voice was breathless, excited, almost crying. "Baby girl? What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. Everything's right. Daddy, I got promoted, regional manager for my whole company, and they're moving me to Louisville. The kids and I are coming home, Daddy. We're coming home. We found a house just 15 minutes from you. I'm gonna need help with the kids while I'm working, and I thought maybe you could pick them up from school sometimes. Maybe they could come to the shop after school like I used to." Marcus couldn't speak. He just stood there with scissors in one hand and phone in the other, tears pouring down his face, while Mr. Williams asked if he was okay. "Daddy, you still there?" "I'm here, baby girl, I'm here. When are you moving?" "Next month. I know it's fast, but Daddy, this is such a great opportunity, and I realized life's too short, you know. I realized I need to be closer to family. I need my kids to know their grandpa. I've been a terrible daughter, Daddy. I've been so focused on my own problems that I forgot about you, forgot about the shop, forgot about everything important." "You ain't been terrible," Marcus said, his voice breaking. "You've been living your life. But baby girl, I'm so glad you're coming home. You don't even know what this means to me." They talked for another 20 minutes. About the house she'd found, about the kids and school and the new job, about all the time they'd get to spend together. When Marcus finally hung up, Mr. Williams was staring at him with concern. "You all right, Marcus?" "Yeah," Marcus said, wiping his eyes and going back to the haircut. "Yeah, I'm more than all right. I think God just answered about 10 years' worth of prayers all at once." That night, when Marcus got home, there was an envelope on his doorstep. Plain white envelope, his name written on it in perfect flowing handwriting. No stamp, no return address. Marcus's hands shook as he opened it. Inside was a single piece of paper with a handwritten note. "Marcus, what you did for the least of these, you did for me. Your kindness has been recorded in heaven. Your faithfulness in small things will lead to faithfulness in greater things. The shop is saved. Your family returns. Your prayers have been heard and answered. Keep serving, keep loving, keep seeing people the way I see them, as precious, as valuable, as worthy of dignity and grace. Every person who walks through your door is an opportunity to serve me. Never forget that." The world is full of invisible people, people society has dismissed, people carrying burdens no one sees, people waiting for someone to treat them like they matter. Be that someone, Marcus. Be the hands and feet of Christ. Be the answer to someone else's desperate prayer. I will be watching. I am always watching. With love, Matthew 25-40. No signature, no name. Just that reference, Matthew 25-40. Marcus read the note over and over, tears blurring his vision. Then he carefully folded it and put it in his wallet, right next to the picture of Patricia he always carried. The next day, he had the note professionally framed and hung it on the wall of the shop, right next to his grandfather's original Barber license from 1958. Under the frame, he added a small plaque that read, "Served here, November 15th, 2024, never forgotten." People asked about it sometimes. "What's that note about?" they'd say. And Marcus would smile and say, "That's a reminder. That's the most important thing I ever learned about this business, about this life, about everything that matters." He never told the whole story. How could he? Who would believe it? Even Sister Margaret looked at him with concern whenever he brought it up, but Marcus didn't need anyone to believe him. He knew what happened. He knew who he'd served that Friday night. And that knowledge changed everything. If this testimony touched your heart, if you believe Jesus still walks among us, type Amen in the comments right now. And subscribe to this channel. These stories need to reach everyone who's lost hope, everyone who's questioning, everyone who needs to know that God still sees them. 3 months later, the community center construction began. Marcus watched as workers renovated the building around his shop, transforming the struggling neighborhood into something new. The community center would have job training programs, after-school care, food assistance, financial counseling, addiction recovery programs, everything the neighborhood needed, all in one place. And Anderson Family Barbershop would be right at the heart of it. Keisha and the kids, Marcus's grandchildren, ages 7 and 9, moved to Louisville in January. Suddenly, Marcus's empty house was full of noise and life again. Kids running through on weekends, family dinners on Sundays, homework help at the kitchen table, bedtime stories and laughter, and all the beautiful chaos he'd been missing for so long. The kids started coming to the shop after school on Wednesdays and Fridays. Marcus taught them to sweep up hair, to organize tools, to greet customers. His grandson, David, aged 9, was fascinated by the clippers and scissors. "Can you teach me to cut hair, Grandpa?" he'd ask. And Marcus would think about his own grandfather teaching his father teaching him, and now maybe, just maybe, the legacy would continue to a 4th generation after all. By March, Marcus hired 2 more barbers. Young guys from the neighborhood who needed jobs, who needed mentorship, who needed someone to believe in them. Marcus trained them the way his father had trained him. With patience, with high standards, with an emphasis on service over profit. And every Saturday, Anderson Family Barbershop offered free haircuts from noon to 3 p.m. Free for anyone who needed it. Homeless folks, people in job training programs, people struggling to get back on their feet. Marcus put a sign in the window. "Dignity for all. Free haircuts every Saturday, no questions asked." The first Saturday, 7 people came. The second Saturday, 15. By the 3rd month, there was a line out the door every Saturday, 40, 50, sometimes 60 people seeking not just a haircut, but the message behind it. You matter. You are seen. You are worthy of dignity and care. Marcus remembered Michael's words, "Every kindness I receive, from this day forward I'll pass it on." And that's what Marcus was doing, passing it on over and over and over. Some Saturdays, Marcus would look up from cutting someone's hair and feel a presence, feel someone watching. He'd glance toward the door, expecting to see Michael Santos standing there with that gentle smile and those impossibly deep eyes. But Michael never came back. Whoever he'd been, whatever he'd been, he'd delivered his message and moved on. But Marcus felt him sometimes, felt that presence, felt those eyes, especially when he was serving someone the world had forgotten, someone invisible, someone desperate. In those moments, Marcus would remember, "Whatever you did for one of the least of these, you did for me." And he'd work a little slower, a little more carefully, treating each person like they were divine, like they were Jesus himself, sitting in that chair. Because maybe they were. Maybe every person was a little piece of Christ, carrying God's image even when the world couldn't see it. Maybe serving anyone was serving God. That was the truth Michael had taught him. There are no insignificant people. There are no throwaway lives. Everyone carries infinite worth, infinite dignity, infinite value. And when we serve the least of these, when we see the invisible, when we treat strangers with the same love and care we'd give to Christ himself, we are doing the most sacred work in the universe. 6 months after that Friday night encounter, Marcus stood in his newly renovated shop, now part of the thriving Louisville Community Center, and looked around with wonder. 4 barber chairs, all full. 2 employees working alongside him. His grandson sweeping up, chattering about wanting to be a barber when he grew up. Keisha stopping by with lunch. The walls covered with photos. 3 generations of Anderson men, plus new photos of the community center's grand opening, of the first Saturday free haircut event, of all the lives being changed in this small space. And right in the middle, in a place of honor, the framed note, "What you did for the least of these, you did for me." People asked Marcus sometimes if he ever found that homeless man, that Michael Santos, who'd gotten the life-changing haircut. Marcus would just smile and say, "I looked, searched every shelter, every street corner, every place a homeless man might go. Nobody'd ever heard of him. It's like he just vanished." "That's strange," people would say. And Marcus would respond, "Not strange at all. Not if you understand what really happened that night. Have you ever wondered if God still walks among us? Have you ever questioned whether miracles still happen, whether prayers are still heard, whether faith still matters?" Marcus Anderson could answer those questions with absolute certainty, because he'd experienced it firsthand. He'd cut God's hair on a cold November night. He'd washed Jesus' feet. He'd served the King of Kings disguised as the least of these. And everything had changed because of it. On Saturdays, when the shop was full of people receiving free haircuts, when the air was thick with the smell of barbicide and aftershave, and the sound of clippers buzzing and conversations flowing, Marcus would sometimes pause in his work and just look around. This was church. This was worship. This was the gospel made tangible, grace given freely, dignity restored, humanity recognized, love demonstrated through simple acts of service. This was what Jesus had meant. Whatever you do for the least of these, you do for me. And Marcus understood now, finally, deeply, completely understood, that this had always been his calling, not just to cut hair, but to see people. To recognize the image of God in every face, even the faces society preferred to ignore. To treat everyone, like they mattered, because they did, because each person was beloved by God, was precious in God's sight, was worth a miracle. The shop stayed open, the legacy continued, the ministry expanded, and Marcus Anderson, 56-year-old widower and struggling barber, became an instrument of grace in a hurting world, not because he was extraordinary, but because he'd been willing to see a stranger's need and meet it without hesitation, without calculation, without counting the cost. That's what faith looks like in action. That's what love looks like when it puts on work clothes and picks up scissors. That's what the kingdom of God looks like when it shows up in a struggling barbershop on a cold November evening. 1 year later, on the anniversary of that Friday night, Marcus closed the shop early. He sat alone in his grandfather's chair and prayed. Not a prayer of desperation this time, but a prayer of thanksgiving. "Lord, he said, tears streaming down his face. Thank you. Thank you for seeing me when I felt invisible. Thank you for answering my prayers in ways I never could have imagined. Thank you for teaching me what really matters. Thank you for Michael, whoever or whatever he really was. Thank you for using me, for trusting me with that moment, for changing my life through that encounter." He paused, looking around the shop. "I promise you, God, I won't forget. I'll keep serving. I'll keep seeing people. I'll keep treating every stranger like they might be you in disguise. Because they might be. Or because even if they're not, they're still your children, still precious, still worthy of dignity and love." The wind picked up outside, rattling the windows the same way it had that November night. And Marcus could swear he heard a voice on the wind, gentle and familiar. "Well done, good and faithful servant. Well done." Marcus smiled through his tears. "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you for walking through my door. Thank you for trusting me to recognize you, even if it took me a while. Thank you for this life, this shop, this ministry, this chance to serve. I won't waste it. I promise you I won't waste it." He sat there until dark, remembering every detail of that night. Michael's matted hair, his gentle voice, his impossible knowledge, his deep eyes that saw everything. The weight of the scissors in his hand, the sound of hair being cut away, the transformation in the mirror, the way Michael had said, "You just serve Jesus." It was all true, every word, every promise, every miracle, and Marcus Anderson, simple barber with a struggling shop in a forgotten neighborhood, had been chosen to experience it, to live it, to carry that truth forward into the world. Final CTA. Comment right now. Lord, help me see you in the strangers around me. Let's flood the comments with this prayer. Subscribe to this channel so more people can hear these testimonies of Jesus walking among us. Share this with your city, your church, your family. The world needs to know that God still sees us, still meets us, still walks among us, disguised as the least of these. Matthew 25:40. Whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. Never forget it. Never forget to serve. Never forget to see, because every stranger might be Jesus. Every act of kindness might be recorded in heaven. Every moment of grace might be the hinge on which someone's whole life turns. Don't miss it. Don't miss him. This story is inspired by the biblical truth of Matthew 25:40 and Hebrews 13:2. While fictionalized for this testimony, the spiritual principle is absolutely real. We are called to serve the least of these, to entertain strangers who might be angels, to see Christ in every person we meet. May this story inspire you to live out that truth in your own life.